everybody. Welcome to the Black Flag Running Club. This has been one wild week. A week ago, we had no idea that all this drama was going to lay on top of us, but we want to make sure that we're able to still provide the services of the Black Flag Running Club, keep you on top of your training regimen. And so here's going to be the plan moving forward. So previously, you got your text messages on Mondays and on Fridays that told you what was going to be happening for those following days with our runs on Tuesdays and on Saturdays. We're going to keep that same approach. So moving forward, you're going to continue to get your text messages on Monday morning, but with an added feature. Now you're going to get a video that's going to go along with it that's really just going to explain everything that's laid out for you for that coming week. So keep an eye out for each one of those. Again, those text messages are going to resume their regular scheduled delivery, but now there will be an added video again on Mondays and on Fridays that's describing what that workout and what's going to be planning for that week for those following days. All right, so with that, we've also had to do a couple modifications to kind of how things are going to be running moving forward. So what we've started putting together, in addition to these weekly videos that are going to be telling you what's coming up, we've also produced a warm-up video, which is now available for you, so you can follow along and do our traditional warm-up and just follow along with that. And then we're also added in some new things. So for example, on Thursdays, we're going to start introducing some speed workout and some treadmill workout. Now I understand that not everybody's going to have access to a treadmill, but for those of you that do or own a treadmill at your house, we'll be adding in a new weekly treadmill workout as well that really is going to be focused on speed training and keeping that leg turnover speed intact. So something new that we haven't done before at the club, but now is going to be distributed as part of these weekly posts as well. So you may have also noticed in the schedule section, we've updated the schedule for the rest of the season, and we're still kind of going to take the approach as if we're getting ready for all the major races. So we've got races like La Jolla is probably our next biggest one. Officially, that one has been canceled, and they're going to be utilizing it as a virtual run. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue to train as if we're preparing for a real full-fledged race. The same thing is going to be true for Rock and Roll. Now that race is still on the books, but if it is to get turned into a virtual race, we're going to still run that race. So even if the races themselves don't put together a virtual race, we're going to do it on our end and keep our training up for each one of those races. So that being said, make sure you're following the schedule, because we want to make sure that we're optimizing our performance and peaking when it comes race time. So we still going to follow the regimented schedule all the way through to whatever those designated races are. So keep an eye out for each one of those. So speaking of virtual races, we are also going to be utilizing Strava quite a bit more than we have in the past. So if you're not signed up on Strava, go ahead and do that. The link is down below as well. That's that little orange icon. Click on that. You can search Run Clubs. You'll find the Black Flag Running Club. Create yourself a profile, add yourself into the club itself, and then you'll see each week at the bottom where it says, we're going to be running on Saturdays or we're running on Tuesdays, and tells you the location. There'll be another link that's there. It's going to be the Strava link. So that's going to be the virtual Run Club link for each one of those things. It's going to be looking like a regular event. Click on that. You can kind of see how your performance compared against some of the other people in the club. Again, these are not races, but just kind of get an idea of like who's in your general parameters as far as running distance and or time is concerned. That may become a little bit more relevant as we start moving into the longer miles for the full marathon. You may want to partner up with some of those people as well. So next up, how do we continue running and doing all the things that we need to do to prepare for these virtual races, and also be mindful of what do we do with this coronavirus, and what do we do with keeping social distancing? So one of the things that you may notice is that on your individual posts, when I tell you where we're running on both Tuesdays and Saturdays, I've removed the times. And the reason behind that is I still want you going out there and running. I still want you actually covering the same distances that we have listed for you, but we want to keep it so that we aren't showing up in mad packs at any particular time. So do them at your leisure. If you got one or two running buddies that you currently are running with, that's cool. Go ahead and get them together and do those runs, but be very, very mindful that we don't turn this into a rogue running group where we have large groups of people getting together. If you do run into somebody else at the run club, keep those 6 feet of distance from them, say hi, and then get on your run. Again, we want to make sure that we keep the club intact. I would really hate to see an entire club outbreak take place and everybody gets sick at one time. time. So I think, providing social distancing is the best and safest way to go. And because of that, we're going to keep up this kind of remote approach to the Run Club until the CDC and or the state removes its guidelines. But for right now, this seems like the best possible option for us. Trust me, as soon as they tell us that those are off, we will be having the most amazing get-together ever with a social hour and all the things that go with it. But for now, again, be mindful of social distancing and continue on your mileage, but keep it in much smaller groups of people and or running on your own whenever it's the most convenient for you. And again, sticking with those at minimum Tuesday, Saturday, and as I mentioned earlier, some of those treadmill runs that you can introduce in your schedule on Thursdays. Alrighty, so that's all the announcements that we have. So now we should probably jump in the runs and take a look at what each one of those groups are going to be doing this week. So first up, we have the run walk group. This is really important for you to know that your intervals are going up this week. You are now going to be doing it at a 1-minute walk, 4-minute run, or a 1-minute walk with a 9-minute run for a total of 60 minutes out on the course today. The interval group are going to be doing between 4 to 5 miles. And the PR chasers are going to be doing 4 to 5 miles as well. Now you'll note that 4 to 5 miles actually sounds like a little less than what we've been doing in the past. The reason that is that we're going to complete, now this happens for all 3 groups, the run walk group, the intermediate group, and the PR chasers. We all are going to finish off with a total of 4 100-meter hill repeats at the conclusion of the run. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what does that look like, but at minimum, I want you just to be aware of that's what the mileage is scheduled for today. So again, run walkers 60 minutes, interval group or intermediate group is going to be 4 to 5 miles, PR chasers 4 to 5 miles as well, and you're going to finishing off with 4 100-meter hill repeats. You may have also noticed in the schedule as well that at the very bottom there was a restart schedule. So this is for folks that maybe haven't been keeping up with the mileage up to this point and want to use this as a restart and get ready for, again, like a half marathon in preparation time for rock and roll. Your schedule has you listed as doing 40 minutes today. Your interval is starting all over with a 3-minute walk and 2-minute run, or a 4-minute walk and 6-minute run. If you're part of the intermediate group, you're going to be doing 40 to 50 minutes on your just time on your feet at a casual conversation pace as well. So that's our plan. Let's take a look at the map itself. Alrighty, so next up, let's take a look at this map. There's a lot of different options here and variations depending on the amount of time and distance you're able to do. But again, follow whatever your recommended schedule is. But let's start with going through some of the options here. So we are all going to start off at the very top section of the map where there's a blue star listed, the Morley Field Sports Complex. From here, we're going to take off heading west on Upas Street. When we get to the end of Upas, we're going to make that left-hand turn. It's going to take us down Morley Field Drive. Note that this is a really big hill that's happening here when we get to the bottom of Florida Street. Many of us are going to continue to go up Morley Field Drive until we get to the stoplight. We're going to go through the stoplight until we hit SeaWorld Drive. Not SeaWorld Drive, Zoo Drive. Keep going along the front of the entrance to the zoo. That's where there's the big giant gold line. You're going to go past that. From there, you're going to run into the Prado and the fountain. From there, you're going to make a right-hand turn, head towards the end of the Prado, and hook up with President's Way. From there, it's going to take you back out to Park Boulevard. You're going to then run along Park Boulevard. When you get to the entrance for the zoo, you're going to make that right-hand turn, and it's going to take you down Zoo Place until you run into Florida Canyon. From there, we're running down Florida Canyon until we get to the beginning of Pershing Drive. From there, we've got a really long, about a mile incline that we're going to be heading up, going from the bottom of Pershing all the way up to the corner of Upas. There's a stop sign there. That is your turnaround point, so don't let up off that hill until you actually hit that stop sign. Now, once you get to that stop sign, you're going to see over on your left-hand side, there's a big grassy field there for you. That is where you're going to do your 4 100-meter hill repeats. You're going to make your way down to the bottom of the tree line, and then you're going to run up to where the hedges are at, and then repeat that a total of 4 times. This should be about an 80 to 90% max effort. Again, 4 times all the way through. Now, if you are not able to complete that entire course in the time frame that we provided for you, most people will be doing this following option. Heading down Upas, making that left-hand turn on Morley Field Drive. From there, you'll make a left on Florida Drive. be heading all the way down to the end where Pershing is at, and then from there, cutting up Pershing all the way to the top where Yuppies is at. So you've got a couple different options there, a big loop and or a smaller loop, both of which you'll be able to complete within the prescribed mileage depending on which route that you're on. So I said that magic word today, hills, and you're like, oh no, hills, we haven't been doing any hills. And that's exactly my point. The first part of the season, we're really focused on base building, right? Developing a strong strength, or developing a good base, so that as we start to progress in our training approach, you're able to handle a lot more of this speed training we're gonna start to introduce and some of the hills that we're gonna start to introduce. There is no replacement for hill training. You can spend all the time on the treadmill, run as fast as you want, but the second that you put an incline in front of you, you're gonna see a significant reconciling of your training. So we're going to spend some time over the next 3 weeks really focusing on how well we're prepared to be able to handle those hills. So let's talk about what we do when we face a hill. So first and foremost is why do we do this? You know, hills are the best way to build strength and our overall speed. They are the best way to promote our VO2 max and our overall running economy. And the biggest thing I want you guys to keep in mind while you're taking on these hills is it's all about cadence. Realize the level of effort should not really change a whole lot, but the cadence and the speed are going to be your cadence is going to remain the same, but your speed is going to be the thing that's going to adjust. So the number of times per minute that your feet are hitting the ground, we want to sustain that regardless of the pitch of the hill and or the decrease of the hill. Just keep that pace of the number of times per minute that your feet are hitting the ground, keeping that the same and adjusting stride length to accommodate for speed. One of the other things I want you to be very mindful of is staying away from the idea of toeing off. And what do I mean by toeing off? I mean that idea of where you're really like pushing into your toe and driving forward, where all that's coming from your calves versus driving with your knees and keeping, again, that cadence, maybe shortening that stride length a little bit, but again, keeping the syncopation that's happening with the running up the hill. So part of the reason that people get into trouble when they actually run up hills is they're trying to do a thing called eccentric contraction. And what this actually means is that as we're running up hills, we're really pumping all of our major muscles with lots of blood, right? They're getting really pumped as we've really put forth max effort heading up the hills. But then as we start to head downhill, all of that blood is still really in those quads, and now you're asking yourself to continue to push forward, but also break the run as you're heading downhill. This is a prime example where you start seeing cramping happening in races. So again, being a little bit more conservative in your hill running is actually going to yield a faster overall time than that of really pushing through those hills. Just be mindful of it. It's something that I want you to consider. I guarantee you, if you follow this approach, when you come to races like La Jolla, assuming it was a regular race, you would definitely be passing people left and right as they're dealing with that eccentric contraction that's happening to themselves, because again, they just decided to use the downhill to their advantage, open up their stride, and now they're really dealing with all the consequences that come from that. All right, so just to, I guess in final summary here to kind of put things in perspective, you know, so we talk about Rock and Roll. They have about a mile and a half to a mile and 3/4 with a 6% grade. We have a AFC. They're at 1.3 miles at a 6% grade, and La Jolla has got a 1.7 mile with a 4 to 8% grade, with the highest grade of that entire course being as high as 12%. So you can see why us getting off the flatlands down in Mission Bay and moving up to the hills are really going to be important for us to make sure that we can peak on our performance when that time comes. All right, that's everything that we have for you today. So keep up on the regular assigned runs, stay connected, run safe, run strong, and we'll see you guys on Friday.